All right, go ahead.
Okay, Peter O'Brien's my name, and I was born in Glasthule. I live here in Sandycove. Um, I would have come from a farming family. We were dairy farmers here in Glasthule. My father, late father, was a farmer, and as was my grandfather, great grandfather, going back to traced them back to 1787. So the main reason they probably would have started farming here, or being dairy farming, was Kingstown then was being built, and many of the houses that you'd see around the older houses around Sandycove were built as villas, summer houses, really, for those who lived in what was then England, mainly from the west coast of England they came from. So they needed milk, eggs, butter, and I suppose my family over the years would have supplied that. So we would have had, also here in Sandycove there was another dairy called Ballygine Dairy. You're just next to Ballygine Avenue here, and they would be known by the Walker family from Wicklow, and whether it was love or a marriage of convenience, but the Walker family and the O'Brien family intermarried, and therefore increased their patch. So each dairy had their own patch. There was quite a number of dairies in the area, and people say, well, why was there so many? For example, between here and Glasthule, which is probably about 400 yards, there was 4 dairies, because milk, they'd no way of keeping it fresh, and so different farmers had cows who were dry at some stage of the year and others that weren't. So there was plenty of business at that time. So that would have been one of the main reasons. But my grandfather would have also had horses. My father in particular, cattle. We had about 100 cattle, about 2 miles from here. That was in my lifetime up to, I suppose, the late 60s. And we would have either rented land or owned land. For example, 1916, we have found a record where when the troops landed in Kingstown to quell the 1916 rising, they requisitioned my great-grandfather's field, and he had a claim because the field was unusable after it. They had ploughed it up with particularly the horses, the heavy guns, and indeed when they were building the homes, which is now Silchester Park, they found the nose bags of the horses that were there. Unfortunately, we thought we would have found something to reinforce that during the 2016 celebrations, but we only found it recently. Again, another branch of the family in Canada, where there's a lot of O'Briens now, have discovered it there. So there's a lot of history going back along the way. It's reputed that my great-great-grandmother would have featured in James Joyce's Ulysses in the first chapter, where the old lady darkens the door of Joyce's tower with the milk, and we would have been able to establish that that was within the patch, as we would call it, for this particular farmyard here, right behind you, actually, in Ballygine Dairy. And my great-great-grandmother had not much English, she had Irish, which also coincides with the description in Ulysses. She was from Wicklow. So we've, I suppose, over the years had different memories to recall on. But I suppose particularly people here would have seen, particularly around the March-April time, us driving the cattle up Albert Road there. I would remember running ahead, closing the gates, and then maybe forgetting to close the gate, and the garden would be not the same as it was before we left the farmyard in Glasthule. The cowshed it's now known as the Cowshed Car Park, but actually the cowshed is there. The buildings in the farmyard are still there, they can still be seen. And
Where exactly is that then?
Just, do you know Glasthule?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Glasthule car park.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the car park that's known now as the cowshed car park.
Oh, I didn't.
But the cowshed is actually on one side of it.
Ah.
And it is still the actual cowshed, but it's now a garden centre.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose I would look at it, I can see where the horses were kept, I can see where the hay was, bales of hay were stacked, and I'm probably one of the few people left, I would reckon maybe the only one here that can hand milk a cow.
I can hand milk a cow myself.
Okay, so there's two of us.
Being from Connemara, but
Yeah, there's two of us. And we had a particular type of milking stool that was, I reckon, was particular to this area, or indeed Wicklow. It could have been brought from Wicklow. So I've sat on stools in Galway milking cows, and I've sat in stools in Laois milking cows, and I've sat here, and each used a different milking stool. So
oh really? And how were the milking stools?
this
unique?
one was like a T-shaped, but some of them you get with 3 legs on it, and I believe in the Museum of Country Life to have a variety of them, which I must go and have a look at some stage.
And would you spend a lot of time milking cows by hand, or is it mostly machine operated?
No machines. Machines, my father would have, for 2 reasons. One, I suppose he was used to, he knew it would be a big shift in, I suppose, in the milk production to fully
Sorry,
kit out the,
2 seconds there. Monica, will you do me a favour and close the door, please? Thank you.
so that was one reason he had us up early in the morning, milk the cows before I went to school.
So you were an expert milker, really? I mean, you had to actually, that was the business, milking by hand.
Yeah, milking by hand, yeah.
Amazing.
Second reason was we also supplied milk to the Jewish community.
Really?
And
so it was,
they would have required
kosher, is it? Or,
right. The rabbi had to come early in the morning, probably twice a week, and he would oversee, he would stand over me, and he would watch that the milk went straight into the bucket. And when I was finished, then he would take out, I suppose, a piece of silk, and he'd place it over his bucket, and it was strained in there. And he didn't speak, and he'd close it and walk. So, yeah, we supplied milk to them as well.
And would you have had many people working milking the cows?
In Glasthule, I think we were at one stage the biggest employer. At one stage, we had about 12 to 15 people.
Coming in the morning, or twice a day?
Well, there's no such thing as a 5-day cow. So, twice a milk twice a day. Then you had the calves, and the horses were required to deliver the milk, because the milk was delivered by horse and cart. Tillycan out of Churns. Later on, it was delivered to TEK Dairy, Tella Khyber Dairy, which is owned by Suttons, and the various dairies would have eventually delivered their milk there, and that's where it was processed. And then eventually those dairies would have amalgamated into Premier Dairies, and that really was the end of dairy in this area.
So you remember the milk being delivered by horse and cart?
Not really. I think that was maybe more my father's time.
Your father's time?
Yeah. I remember we would have supplied milk in cafes in Dunleary.
Okay, yeah.
So I remember doing that. Particular Fuller's Cafe on Marine Road. Get your tilly can. Father dropped me off, and I go down and fill up their fresh milk for the day. I didn't myself. I didn't drink anything out of a bottle until I was about 16 or 17. I'd never touched milk from a bottle. It was always fresh milk.
And is there anything else that comes to mind now?
No, there were some families that there's no pensions there at that stage. I remember my pensions that my grandfather would have, instead of paying, he would, when they retired, they got free milk, free eggs, free butter. My grandmother, which is now the Punnet shop in Glasthule, that was our shop. It still is our shop. Punnet's our tenant there. And that would have been where they would have supplied or would have been a shop for butter, milk, etc. One other issue that we came across lately was in the local chemist, some of their old prescription books. because at that time you got your prescriptions for animals in the chemist as well, the pharmacy. So we would have in those books plenty of references to the dairy, and if there was a cow sick, what was given alongside of my grandmother the headache.
Right. Wow.
So there.
And do you miss it at all?
Do I miss it? It was hard. I mean, it was middle of winter. It was hard. My father was a hard driver. There was 4 of us in the family. I was the only one, the eldest, that actually he would ask to give a hand out. So that was, yeah, I miss it sometimes, but it was very hard. He could have made life easier for himself.
And what about the milk? Is it could you compare it to the milk that's available today?
It was certainly, we could tell the seasons by the milk, for example. You know, if I was in a dark room, you give me a glass of milk, I could tell you whether the cows had got fresh grass, spring grass in April. Oh yeah, you could tell straight away. And then, you know, if you poured a glass of milk into someone's tea, that came from one of the dairies, saying if you poured it in there now and you say you poured it in around April or May, it had little speckles on the top, which was normal. But that was the new grass going through their system, and you know, it was unprocessed. Whereas now all the milk is the same, no matter what time of the year you get. So you'd notice that.
Amazing. And would you know whose milk somebody's milk was? Would it go that far?
Yes. Again, going back through the newspapers over the years, there was some occurrences of maybe the milk was, times are hard, drop of water might have been added to it, and to stretch it. Found a couple of cases in the courts in Dunleary in the late 1800s. Found another case where the weights we used for butter might have been a bit off, and the weight inspector.
Hang on, sorry, 2 seconds.
I'm just going to a place called Sol Calador.
Oh, it's just getting a bit loud. It's getting a bit loud here. But we might chat another day.
Yeah.
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 I'm worried that we won't be able to hear your voice. But so do you want to just say bye for now, maybe?
Okay. It's great. Thanks. Good luck for now.
It was very nice chatting with you. It's very interesting.